And so we continue with the EU turn, the blue cylinder, and a development event. We get ethnic violence plays in Africa. And this is one of those events that does not override the upcoming event, so we place it there and place the Palestine question instead. And then we check whether the EU is able to resolve any opportunities, and I believe we don't have any at this moment. So going to the command segment. Here we look into the EU hand. It's a good opportunity to go economic. Play these, nominate economic suit and play 3 cards. This increases polarization. That is, places a polarization marker here into the EU home space on level 1. And how do we make use of these cards? There is no way of generating further command from these cards, and there is no, and the EU doesn't hold any opportunities, so it looks like it will be only this one command. Although I do see that there's a pretty good card over here. This one, the Eurozone. If the EU has the highest world order of all powers, and the EU indeed does, they have 4 and the rest are at 3, EU may take any 2 non-security actions and may apply the consequences of one of them. I am going to be using this to pull ahead in the economic game in here with respect to the International Carbon Action Partnership, representing the effects of global warming and climate change and what powers do about it. So ICAP is now something that the EU can address and resolve. But perhaps China will react before things go that far. So those were the 2 actions from the Eurozone card. So the EU is using the power of the Eurozone to introduce carbon standards globally. And we have to pay 1 resource as a space selection cost. For those actions, they select the same space, i.e. in this case the track, so only once we pay the resource cost. And the card also said you need to take consequences of one of those actions, so we take polarization increase, which is the consequence from economic actions. For the remaining 2 EU cards, let's try a little something daring. So here's the Mikhail Saakashvili world event. A development event on map. One of the effects of it is that it can bring the Europe scoring card into play. And so we are going to need an economic card, which we have one here to trigger that effect. So let's do that. We trigger Saakashvili. So it says use an economic or cultural card. We're looking at the top option here. So we are using the European Parliament to trigger this, and so use an economic card to put Color Revolutions, which is the Europe scoring card, to play. Then take a place influence action in Europe. Okay, so we will put the scoring card into play. That means we simply take a marker and put it here into Europe as a reminder that Europe is now a scoring region. The scoring will happen here during the globalization phase after we've completed the 4th round of play. And then second effect, 10 take place influence action in Europe. So we will certainly pay 1 resource to increase our economic influence in Europe, in the Baltic states to 3, and with that Saakashvili goes out of play. This was an economic action, and now we see who will be able to react. Oh, there was something we forgot, which is that the Russians have captured our elites. They dark money controls part of our European elites, and as a result, Russia is now able to react to economic actions by paying one resource and increasing tension in Europe. So we are due to lose one victory point unless we do something about the tension there in Europe or in the European Union home space before it's too late. The EU itself gets a reaction as well. We will take the reaction, although we are quite low on money, resources rather, and we will we can react by Angela Merkel's economic focus. We can react by placing economic influence in Europe, which we will do. Let's go down here in Eastern Europe, and we paid one resource for it. Okay, that was Saakashvili and the reactions, and we still have one more card to play. This one has been played. Let's see, what do we want to do with the Brussels effect? We could place it as a reaction card, or we could pass and take two resources. That's probably the best. So we will simply discard the card and increase the EU resources by 2. Okay, and next we move to the EU planning phase and look at the kind of cards they might want to bring to play. There's an economic card with a momentum effect on it. That could be a good one. Discard to the EU discard pile. Is there a card that we may want to get rid of? Let's see. I'm a little nervous getting rid of our military card here, but let's do that. And so we get rid of that, and then we draw the hand to 5 cards, reshuffling the discard pile, and our hand looks pretty strong going into the 3rd round then eventually. And lastly, we have drawn the card, so we move into the next round, 3rd round starting, and we readjust the order of play according to the current resource levels. China and Russia are tied, in which case the old order prevails, and there's a tie also with the US and the EU, so actually there is no change in the order of play, and with that we can start the 3rd round with China in the next video.